We are then taken back to a flashback on September 30th, 2003, when a large-scale evacuation was carried out in Lincoln, Massachusetts area by Fedra. All homes were emptied except for one person who hid in his home, refusing to be evacuated while spying through CCTV monitors, and he was Bill. After the area was cleared, Bill came out to make sure, then quickly gathered all the supplies he needed for his survival, including fuel, electricity, and weaponry. He also barricaded the area with iron fences, while setting up various traps and snares. Bill did all this alone, even keeping livestock as food supply, and even planting. While enjoying his cooking, Bill watched from the CCTV monitor as an infected person entered a trap and eventually died. 4 years later, in 2007, Bill found someone trapped in a mud pit he had created earlier. Approaching the pit, he found a man who claimed he was not infected with cordyceps. Bill eventually helped him with a ladder and let him go. However, the man intended to ask for food while introducing himself as Frank. Initially, Bill refused because he feared if Frank left, he could tell other vagrants who might come to the place to ask for free food as well. Eventually, Bill let Frank enter his home to shower, where Bill also provided clean clothes for Frank at the dining table. Bill then served his cooking to Frank, who was amazed and praised his cooking. After Frank was ready to leave, he asked for a moment to try out Bill's 1948 piano because Frank played it improperly. Bill happily allowed him to play the song, enabling Frank to gauge his sexual orientation. Eventually, they started a romantic relationship. 3 years later, in 2010, Bill and Frank argued about Frank's desire to tidy up the complex, including the boutique shop, so they could have friends later on. Bill was puzzled because they would never have friends, especially in a pandemic era like this, until Frank revealed that he had contacted a nice woman on the radio. This made Bill jealous. It turned out this nice woman was Tess, who eventually came to visit with Joel. They both joined in a lunch gathering while discussing smuggling operations they could undertake. Bill was always alert with his pistol, while Frank and Tess immediately clicked and then went inside the house to see something. Joel understood Bill's fears, explaining that Bill had no reason to fear him or Tess, especially since Bill could get supplies not available to him from the quarantine zone, such as books, medications, and more. Although initially reluctant, Bill revealed that his electric fence was starting to rust, and Joel could bring him durable wire so he and Frank could remain protected. As Joel and Tess were preparing to leave, Frank discussed a radio code based on 1980s music that indicated that it was a message meaning trouble was brewing. Meanwhile, Joel warned that although Fedra would not come and their fence was strong enough to kill the infected, they still had to be vigilant against looters who might come stealthily at night. In 2013, Bill strengthened his fence with a wall made of stacked cars due to Joel's previous warning. Frank took Bill around the town, showing off the strawberry garden he had planted using seeds he traded with one of Bill's guns to Tess. As they tasted the strawberries, Bill expressed his fear of leaving Frank alone because he was getting older. One rainy night, Joel's prediction came true. A group of looters attempted to breach their complex. Fortunately, Bill's traps held them off. Awakened by the sound of explosions, Frank rushed to find Bill, who was engaged in a shootout with the looters. Bill was eventually shot in the abdomen, forcing Frank to quickly drag him inside the house. As Frank treated Bill's wound, Bill instructed and insisted that Frank call Joel, hoping Joel would protect them as his replacement, while providing codes and instructions for maintaining the house and complex. They did not need to worry about the looters because Bill was confident that the traps he had set outside the complex would kill all the looters. Time passed until August 2023. 10 years later, Bill and Frank had aged, with Frank now using a wheelchair due to a rare disease affecting his abilities. He spent most of his time painting, while Bill took care of the plants and helped Frank prepare food and take his medicine. Frank eventually suggested that he no longer wanted to suffer in pain and was ready to die. Bill proposed finding a doctor, but Frank realized it was all in vain. Frank comforted Bill by suggesting that on his last day, they would go to a boutique to pick out a suit and ring, and then get married immediately. Bill also served the last dinner for him, then crushed a high dose of sleeping pills to dissolve in his drink. So Frank was actually asking Bill to help him end his suffering by ending his life. Reluctantly, Bill did it, serving the same food and wine they had on the day they first met. When it was time to drink the wine, Bill dissolved the crushed pills in the glass that Frank sipped from. Bill also drank from his glass. Frank was shocked to realize that Bill had put a high dose of pills in their wine bottle. They demonstrated that they were old and ready to depart together with the person they loved because they no longer saw a reason to continue living. They finally went into their bedroom. Weeks after, Joel and Ellie arrived at Lincoln at the complex and found Bill's house looking empty. Joel saw that Bill's bedroom was locked, while Ellie noticed the remnants of Bill's and Frank's last meal starting to rot, and found a letter left by Bill for Joel. In the letter, Bill explained that the bodies of himself and Frank were in the bedroom, with the window left open to avoid making the house smell. Bill explained that he used to hate the world and was happy when people disappeared. But unexpectedly, Bill found a purpose in life after meeting Frank, who showed him that he had someone worth saving. He told Joel that they both actually had a duty to protect the one person worth saving, and left all their weapons and equipment for Joel to take. Ellie reluctantly continuing to read the letter, until it turned out that Bill had told Joel to use the weapons and supplies to protect Tess, which of course made Joel sad, and eventually he left the house. In the garage, Joel found Bill's car and the supplies he needed for a new battery. He then returned inside the house and noticed Ellie's bite mark, seeing that it had indeed healed. This further convinced him of what Tess and Marlene had previously believed, that Ellie has immunity to the cordyceps infection. Joel explained that they were heading to Wyoming to meet his brother, Tommy, who was a former member of the Fireflies and could help Ellie get to safety. Joel also laid down rules. They would never mention Tess's name again. Ellie was not to tell anyone about her bite, and she must follow any command Joel gave. In the basement, they found a room with weapons, a table, and a radio still playing 1980s music. They searched the house for supplies, and then Ellie took a hot shower and changed clothes while waiting for Joel to finish his shower. Ellie found Frank's pistol in a drawer and quickly hid it in her backpack. They finally got into the car, making Ellie feel like she was on an airplane. They then set off to meet Tommy, playing a cassette with songs, while the camera panned their car through the open bedroom window of Bill and Frank. At a gas station restroom, Ellie played with the pistol she had taken from Bill's house, then hurriedly stashed it in her backpack to keep it hidden from Joel. Ellie then joined Joel, who was busy siphoning gas from several abandoned cars. They had to stop nearly every hour to refuel due to the perishable nature of the gasoline. While waiting, Ellie pulled out a book and tried to cheer up Joel. Although Joel was not fond of the jokes from the book, they continued their journey. In the car, Ellie found another cassette. She also discovered one of Bill's porn magazines, which she then threw away, saying goodbye. Throughout their journey, Ellie was stunned by the devastation of civilization. As evening approached, Joel decided to enter the forest to rest, serving canned food for dinner for himself and Ellie. Joel planned to rest overnight before continuing the long journey to Wyoming the next day, hoping to arrive there the following day. Ellie suggested lighting a fire to warm up, but Joel refused, warning that it wasn't the infected that might find them, but other potentially dangerous groups. As they rested, Ellie once again tried to make Joel laugh, and this time she was somewhat successful. However, Joel soon told Ellie to go to sleep. Unfortunately, anxiety and fear haunted Joel again, prompting him to stay awake with his weapon throughout the night. The next morning, Ellie woke up as Joel was making coffee, which she disliked the smell of. On her right, Ellie asked Joel to tell her about Tommy. Joel recounted that the last known location of Tommy was near Cody, Wyoming, and if he wasn't there, they would head to the nearest settlement. Joel further explained that Tommy had always been obsessed with becoming a hero, which led him to enlist in the military after high school. However, after serving in a Desert Storm operation, Tommy became disillusioned and eventually left the military. Joel followed Tommy to Boston, where they met Tess and Marlene persuaded Tommy to join her in the Fireflies, ultimately convincing him due to his obsession with saving the world. However, Joel heard the news that Tommy had left the Fireflies. When Ellie asked why not just give up on the state of the world, Joel insisted that he was doing it for family, but Ellie added that she wasn't family. Joel continued, saying he had promised Tess, who he considered family. Their journey was hindered in Kansas City, forcing them to take a long detour towards the city's highway, but unfortunately, they got lost and suddenly found an entrance to Kansas City, which unfortunately had no Fedra presence. Their journey was disrupted by someone who appeared to be injured and asking for help. But Joel refused to be deceived and immediately sped up. Indeed, the man turned out to be just one of the bandits they were trying to avoid. Unfortunately, Joel's car hit a wire trap, forcing it to crash into a building. Joel then instructed Ellie to hide in a hole leading to a room, while Joel dealt with a bandit with his rifle. But unfortunately, he was ambushed by another bandit trying to choke him with his rifle. Ellie, hearing Joel in trouble, approached and took her pistol to shoot the bandit, disabling him. Joel, saved, then instructed Ellie to hand over her pistol and hide behind the wall, then went on to kill the bandit. Ellie then opening the door for Joel. They then quickly exited the building where they hid from an armored vehicle, which eventually found their dead companions. Ellie and Joel then entered another building. Meanwhile, at the Fedra detention center, the bandit leader named Kathleen interrogated Dr. Edelstein about the whereabouts of someone named Henry. Henry was considered responsible for the death of Kathleen's sibling. The interrogation was interrupted by the arrival of a truck carrying the corpses of bandits killed by Joel. Perry, one of Kathleen's lieutenants, explained that the murderer was a stranger. Kathleen then concluded that this was the work of Henry, who had sent someone else, because of the incident, which made Kathleen angry. She then returned to the detention and killed Dr. Edelstein, then instructed all her members to find the murderer. The bandit group eventually plunged into checking every building, while Joel and Ellie hid in a former building waiting for the situation to be safe to come out. Joel apologized for putting Ellie in a situation where she had to hurt someone, although she was still young. Ellie, looking sad, admitted that it was not the first time she had done it. Joel then returned the pistol to her, teaching her how to use it properly and instructing her to hide the pistol in her backpack. But Ellie insisted on keeping the pistol in her pants pocket. Meanwhile, Perry escorted Kathleen to the attic of a nearby house where they found some pictures that seemed to have been made by a child. Kathleen suspected that Henry had run out of supplies, but she would not let Sam starve. Perry then directed Kathleen to a more pressing matter in a basement of another building where they found a moving floor crack, and Perry urged to report to their members. But Kathleen ordered to wait until their business with Henry was finished. Back to Joel and Ellie, who finally entered a high-rise apartment building so they could view a safe route they could take from the upper floors. As they ascended the stairs, Ellie asked how he could know about the ambush incident they had previously experienced. Joel then explained that he had once been forced to do it to survive with Tess, Tommy, and their friends. Eventually, they reached the 33rd floor, where Joel, exhausted. However, Ellie insisted Joel to keep moving. Joel then scattered broken glass around them to ensure no one would disturb them while they were sleeping. They lay down, and Joel again asked about Ellie's comment that it wasn't the first time she had hurt someone, but Ellie did not want to answer. She then inquired about Joel's suspicion that his right ear was somewhat impaired, and Joel explained that it might be because of his habit of shooting. Before sleeping, Ellie noticed yellow-colored jeans and teased Joel by saying he must have a hereditary diarrhea, which made Joel unable to hold back his laughter, and they finally fell into a deep sleep. However, their plan did not work as Joel's left ear was covered when he lay on his left side, causing him to be late in hearing Ellie's screams, as she was now held at gunpoint by a man, while Joel was aimed at by a boy. The ones who ambushed Ellie and Joel turned out to be Henry and Sam, and episode 4 concluded. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.